3 disturbing true home alone horror stories. Story 1. The Unseen Presence. Emily had always enjoyed the quiet of her parents' home, especially during winter. This year, with a snowstorm brewing outside, she was excited to house sit while they were away. The snowflakes danced down from the sky, blanketing the world in a serene white. She settled in, Ed with her favorite snacks and a stack of movies, ready for a cozy weekend. As night fell, the howling winds began to drown out the sound of her movie. A chill crept through the house, and Emily wrapped herself in a blanket, trying to shake off the unease that settled in her stomach. 8. Alone in a big house, the silence felt oppressive. It started with the sounds. At first, it was just the house settling, creaks and groans she tried to ignore. But as the hours passed, she began to hear more distinct noises, footsteps in the hallway, soft whispers that seemed to drift through the air. Emily's heart raced. She reasoned it was just the wind playing tricks on her. Checking her phone, she saw a message from her parents, stuck in traffic. "We'll be late." Panic gripped her. The storm was worsening, and she felt more isolated. She glanced at the security camera feeds, trying to distract herself. But what she saw sent chills down her spine. A shadow flickered across the hallway, disappearing before she could register it. "Just the light," she whispered to herself, but doubt gnawed at her. She turned off the cameras, convinced she was overreacting. Later, she heard a distinct knock at the door. Heart pounding, she tiptoed toward it, peering through the peephole. No one was there. Just as she was about to turn away, she heard a faint giggle. "Stop it, Emily. It's just your imagination," she muttered, trying to convince herself. But as the night wore on, the atmosphere thickened with tension. The noises escalated, faint footsteps pacing the hall, doors creaking open. It felt like someone was moving through the house, watching her. She couldn't shake the feeling of being observed. Finally, she decided to check the cameras again. This time, she froze in terror. The footage showed her moving around the house, but behind her, a dark figure lurked, barely visible in the shadows. Her breath hitched as she realized the figure seemed to mirror her movements, inching closer with each frame. "Stop it," she yelled at the screen, but there was no response. Her mind raced, and she bolted for the attic, hoping to find some semblance of safety. The attic was dark and musty, filled with forgotten memories. As she curled into a corner, clutching her phone, she heard a sound that made her blood run cold, a whispering voice, eerily similar to her own. "Emily, come here," panic surged. She turned on her flashlight, illuminating the attic. No one was there, but the voice persisted, echoing in her mind. She pressed her back against the wall, desperately hoping for morning to come. The snowstorm raged outside, trapping her in a nightmare. Hours passed, the voice growing louder, until she could no longer tell where it was coming from. The last flicker of her flashlight illuminated a shadow standing at the attic door, grinning down at her. Emily's scream echoed through the house, swallowed by the howling winds outside. Story 2. The Phone Call. Jake was ecstatic when his parents left for their weekend getaway, leaving him alone in the house. At 16, he craved the freedom, excited to play video games and enjoy the silence of an empty home. The first night was blissful, the quiet giving him a sense of independence. But as darkness settled in, an unsettling feeling crept over him. It started with the first phone call. The house phone rang, breaking the stillness. He answered, only to hear heavy breathing on the other end. "Hello," he called out, but there was no reply. Shaking it off as a prank, he hung up. The next call came an hour later, and this time, the voice on the line was different. "Jake, I can see you," it whispered, sending shivers down his spine. "You, all alone." He slammed the phone down, his heart racing. Who was this? He glanced out the window, half expecting to see someone lurking in the shadows, but the street was empty. The calls continued throughout the night, each one more unsettling than the last. The caller knew details about him, his fears, his secrets, even his favorite hiding spots. Jake became paranoid, convinced he was being watched. Every creak of the house made him jump, every shadow seemed to dance menacingly on the walls. Desperate for a distraction, he tried playing video games, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't alone. The calls turned into a twisted game, taunting him with laughter and threats. "I am right outside," the voice would say, sending Jake into a frenzy. He checked every window and door, locking them tight. On the third night, the atmosphere became suffocating. The calls escalated, revealing intima details about his life. I see your fear, Jake. You can hide from me. He was convinced someone was in the house. He grabbed a baseball bat, ready to confront whoever was tormenting him. When the phone rang again, he answered with a shaky breath. What do you want? Just a little chat, the voice chuckled darkly. You know where to find me. Frantically, Jake searched the house, his heart pounding. Each room felt like a trap, and shadows seemed to twist menacingly around him. As he reached the basement door, he felt an overwhelming sense of dread. It was dark and musty, but he couldn't ignore the feeling that something awaited him down there. With the bat in hand, he descended the creaking stairs, each step echoing in the silence. The basement was filled with forgotten furniture and boxes. But as he moved deeper, he stumbled upon something that made his blood run cold. A hidden room, its door slightly ajar. Inside, he found photographs plastered across the walls, images of himself in various moments, captured without his knowledge. His heart raced as he recognized moments from his life, taken without his consent. The last photo was the most chilling, a recent picture of him, taken through the window just hours before. Suddenly, he heard the voice again, now closer. I am here, Jake. Let us play. The realization hit him like a punch. He was not just being watched, he was the prey in a twisted game. Jake dashed back up the stairs, the bat trembling in his hands. But as he reached for the door, it slammed shut before him. He was trapped, the echo of that chilling laughter ringing in his ears. The phone rang one last time, and as he picked it up, he could only hear the sound of his own heavy breathing on the other end. Story 3, The Visitor. The evening had begun as a celebration, a family gathering filled with laughter and warmth. But as the last guests left, 11-year-old Sarah found herself alone in the large, echoing house. Her parents assured her they would be back soon, leaving her to enjoy the solitude. At first, she felt safe, basking in the comfort of her home. But soon, the silence became unsettling. With the lights dimmed, the shadows danced on the walls, and Sarah found herself drawn to the window, watching the darkening street outside. That's when she saw her, an unfamiliar man standing on the sidewalk, her figure obscured by the darkness. Curiosity piqued. Sarah watched as the woman approached the house, knocking gently at the door. Hesitating, Sarah glanced back at her phone. It was dead. Maybe it's someone Mom knows, she whispered to herself, trying to shake off the growing unease. When she opened the door, the woman's smile sent a shiver down Sarah's spine. Hello, sweetheart. I am a friend of your parents. I need your help, she said, her voice sweet yet disconcerting. Sarah hesitated, glancing back at the empty house, a sense of foreboding creeping in. The woman spoke of a lost pet, of needing directions to find it. As she talked, her eyes gleamed with a strange intensity, and Sarah found herself drawn into the woman's stories, tales filled with darkness and despair, that made her skin crawl. Have you ever felt truly alone, Sarah? The woman asked, leaning closer. I know what it's like to be lost, to feel like no one understands. The stories twisted in Sarah's mind, and she felt a mix of fear and sympathy for this strange woman. As minutes turned into an hour, the woman's demeanor shifted. Her stories became more personal, laced with unsettling truths. You watched your family for a long time, Sarah. You read just like me, she whispered, her eyes narrowing. Fear clutched Sarah's throat as she stepped back, realizing that this was no innocent visitor. I think you should leave, she said, her voice trembling. But the woman only smiled wider, revealing a set of crooked teeth. No. We just getting started, she said, forcing her way inside. The warmth of the home now felt stifling, and Sarah's instinct screamed at her to run. She bawled toward the stairs, but the woman followed, her laughter echoing in the hall. Sarah dashed into the nearest room, slamming the door behind her. Breathing heavily, she locked it, and pressed her back against it, listening as the woman's footsteps grew closer. You can hide from me, dear, the woman called out, her voice a sickly sweet melody. I just want to help you understand. The door rattled, and Sarah's heart raced. She spotted a window and climbed onto the bed, desperately trying to open it. Just as she managed to slide it open, she heard the door burst open behind her. The woman stood framed in the doorway, eyes wide and hungry. "Why are you running away from me, Sarah? I want to show you how it feels to be truly alive." With no other choice, Sarah jumped through the window, falling into the snow below. Pain shot through her as she landed, but adrenaline surged as she stumbled to her feet. She glanced back at the house, half expecting the woman to follow. Instead, she saw her standing by the window, grinning down at her, the shadows swallowing her form. Sarah ran into the night, the chilling realization dawning on her. The woman had been watching, waiting, and now she knew Sarah was never really alone.